Using human-centered design to create interactive Bible stories with the sixth graders at ASA. So at first I did a little pre-teaching with the stages of the design thinking and divided the kids into groups and assigned them all one of the Bible stories from the 3 units in our Sophia textbook. During the empathize stage, students were assigned a story. They read the story in the Bible, they read online summaries and watched videos. They also went through some Canvas assignments to talk about the essential or driving question of our project and to empathize with what their audience or their peers would need or want in order to learn. So these are some of those Canvas assignments that the kids needed to respond to. Here's an example of one student's response as we defined what their story really was and all the important information from the story that we really wanted our projects to teach. So next was ideate. The kids were really wide open to come up with any kind of project. The only parameters was that it needed to be interactive and engaging, and it needed to teach their Bible story, teach their driving question, and teach those things that they brainstormed that they really thought were important to learn about their story.
And we could do it like when he gets to the frogs or the flies.
I think it's the frogs are the first play.
Or the licorice. So they have to get past it, or you have to
roll a certain. You have 2 dice and you have to roll a certain quantity between boom and boom.
Creating a prototype was sort of like the next thing when they settled on an idea or narrowed their ideas down. They had to create a prototype of that idea, and that wasn't always easy. That part I think was the most challenging, and kids ran into a lot of difficulties actually trying to put an idea into action.
What's you guys' project all about?
Tell it to the camera.
God's covenant with David.
We're making a Kahoot. It's gonna be fun.
Is that Kahoot? Is that Kahoot even done?
Nope. It's literally not even close to be done because you're not even helping me with it. You're literally supposed to be helping me.
I've been doing this presentation.
Yeah, we gotta find out what the questions are.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm even supposed to do. You haven't told me what questions I'm supposed to write down.
How about we do a...
Are you recording our argument?
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
Alright, how about a first little early life question? Are you on, Kahoot?
How old is God?
No.
Since I wrote them.
So it wasn't always easy for them to come up with a creative idea. Some of them just defaulted to Google Slides and Kahoots and didn't really want to come up with a very creative idea. And 2, just deciding on who's going to do what. There seemed to be a lot of confusion about starting 2 different ideas at the same time and who's doing what part of the idea. It took a lot of negotiating. But finally our prototypes got made and we were able to test our prototypes with each other. So students were able to go to other groups and test out their interactive projects. Again, they went back and sort of discussed more, what they wanted to do and that, turning the ideas into something was really the bulk of our time.
like the shoes and ladder cards. I think they're that are in there. Like roll your dice and like I don't know what to do. Like you'd pick up a card and you'd have to answer the question right. And if you don't answer the question right, then you'll like don't move on.
So discussing with each other and trying to figure out what to do was what they had to struggle through.
That triggers me.
You bad. Flashcard.
But on May 1st, we took what our improved upon designs were, and we sort of had a showcase of our creations for the younger classes. The 4th and 5th grade in our school came up to experience our interactive Old Testament stories. That was largely successful, and I think having that grade, but also that authentic reason of like, okay, someone else besides our class is going to come and see this, really gave kids motivation at the end to kind of put their project together. Some were more successful than others, some were more creative than others, but all in all, it was a success. And even for the people who had trouble, I think that it was a good learning experience. So finally, we went through some reflection questions at the end, asking them to assess themselves and their peers. You know, how did everybody do? It was hard to get them to really think for these. A lot of these were kind of short answers, and they were kind of done with the project by then. So I think the reflecting was kind of a challenge. My final reflections from doing this project is that I noticed that my first attempt really failed, and I didn't have any grades attached. We were just trying to come up with a procedure for the classroom. Nobody was really interested in coming up with a procedure. They really didn't care if we had a procedure. They didn't really see the reason why we needed a procedure or really get that. That was kind of all too far above them. And so that wasn't a good idea. They didn't have any authentic motivation to solve that problem. So it just sort of turned into a big time to mess around. So I noticed that, you know, having that some kind of authentic motivation to solve the problem or do the project is crucial. And also it, you know, our ability to communicate and collaborate with each other really was tested and exercised, especially when they were turning their ideas into prototypes. It was easy for kids to lose track of that essential question and just get really silly with their ideas. So trying to keep them on track and reminding them, you know, is their project meeting that essential question? Definitely one good thing I did was chunking the process and having assignment checkpoints along the way to kind of keep re-emphasizing what we're doing and the process of design thinking. I'm still wondering about it's hard. This is a hard thing for kids to do. It requires a lot of focus, thinking, and the ability to persevere through problems. It's good to cultivate. It's a good way to cultivate these things in your classroom, but it's hard to get the ball rolling. If you don't have a culture of that, it's kind of hard to get the ball rolling. So it can help create that culture of growth, but at the same time, you sort of have to have somewhat of a culture of growth mindset in order for it to even start. So kind of the chicken before the egg before the chicken question there, and it was kind of something I struggled with. Grades were partly a big part of my motivator, especially in the beginning. There was the authentic motivation of they're going to have to do this for 4th and 5th graders, but it seemed like them knowing that it was grading and that I was grading all the little steps along the way was a motivator for them. Some kids were really unmotivated, and I thought about having an alternative project for them, or that was suggested to me, but then talking to other teachers too, that could backfire sometimes, I found out, because sometimes the alternative project is seen as a lot easier. Again, not having to problem solve, persevere through those problems, collaborate with others, not having to do those difficult things. Sometimes, kids wanted that alternative project or program. And so, is it a good alternative, or is it just an easy way out? Those are the things that I'm still kind of wondering about. But all in all, I think it was successful.